My child, pause right here because this moment carries weight you have not yet recognized. You did not arrive at these words by chance. I arranged this encounter before your mind understood what your spirit already sensed. Among all the noise competing for your attention today, I made certain your eyes would settle here because what I need you to hear cannot wait any longer. I know the weariness that has settled into your bones. I have watched you try to silence the questions that rise when everything goes quiet. I have seen you tell yourself that perhaps nothing will shift, that maybe this season will stretch on indefinitely without resolution. But I am telling you now with absolute clarity that this meeting was planned with precision long before this hour arrived. I already knew the exact moment your heart would be ready to receive what I am about to reveal. That is why urgency fills my words right now, because too much has been moving in the unseen realm for you to remain unaware of what I have set in motion around your life. I will not allow you to treat this lightly. Your soul has been standing at the threshold of something far greater than your natural understanding can measure. You have labeled certain experiences as ordinary when they were never ordinary at all. You have called some feelings confusion when in truth they were signals that spiritual shifts had already begun working through your circumstances. Even the restlessness that defied explanation carried meaning. Even the weight that pressed on your thoughts during sleepless hours was not empty pressure. I was letting you feel what your physical eyes could not yet interpret. There are seasons when I interrupt the familiar pattern of your days, because if I delay any longer, you will continue mistaking my silence for absence. When the truth is, silence has been concealing movement so profound that you were not yet strong enough to carry its full weight. I refuse to let you rest until you grasp what I must communicate now, because if you dismiss this moment, you may completely misread the very transformation I have already initiated in your life. You have asked me for signs, but when signs began appearing in subtle ways, you almost overlooked them because they did not match the form you anticipated. You searched for dramatic answers while I worked through whispers. You expected instant clarity while I was constructing understanding slowly within you. I know how many nights you questioned why certain areas felt incomplete. I know how many mornings arrived with burdens you could not name. But hear me with full attention now. Not everything incomplete has been abandoned. Not everything postponed has been refused. There are times when I keep things below the surface because what remains hidden must first develop strength before it can withstand open exposure. If you find value in what you are hearing, take a moment to show your support by liking this message. Your encouragement helps this reach others who need to hear it just as urgently as you do. You have wondered why your heart refuses to settle even during moments when your surroundings appear calm. You asked yourself why peace feels present one moment and distant the next. You questioned why familiar comforts no longer satisfy you the way they once did. That restlessness exists because I have been touching places inside you that cannot stay unchanged. When I begin preparing someone for their next chapter, I often unsettle what they thought they fully understood. I do this not to cause harm, but because comfort becomes a cage when I am summoning them forward. If I allowed you to remain content with what no longer carries your destiny, you would stay trapped where growth has already completed its work. So I permitted specific inner disturbances because they signal that what once contained you can no longer hold what I have placed within you. There are reasons your spirit has felt restless lately. Reasons your heart sensed something shifting beneath the surface. Reasons nothing around you feels normal anymore. You interpreted it as confusion, but it is my hand moving where visibility has not yet reached. Invisible adjustments are already taking place in your life. Some doors have quietly begun loosening before they swing open. Some weights have already started losing their grip before they fall away entirely. Some people surrounding you have already begun repositioning themselves because they cannot remain where I am guiding you next. You may not grasp why certain conversations carry a different tone now, why some environments no longer resonate the same way, why some desires have diminished while others have unexpectedly intensified. But I understand completely because I am the one orchestrating what your eyes have not fully perceived yet. You assumed perhaps you were simply exhausted. You thought maybe your emotions were overwhelmed, but more is unfolding than you realize. I have been working through areas of your existence that you stopped expecting me to address. Situations you quietly accepted as permanent are now being examined by my hand again. Circumstances you believed would stay unresolved are being approached by my power. Even now, I know you cannot see the complete picture, but that does not mean nothing is happening. Much of what I accomplish begins where human vision has no access. Mountains do not always shift with thunder. Sometimes they begin moving in silence while everything visible remains apparently unchanged. This is not merely comfort I am offering. This is your final alert before everything transforms around you. I am speaking with firmness because hesitation has already kept you standing too long in places where you no longer belong. There are decisions before you that cannot be handled carelessly anymore. There are internal responses that now carry more significance than before. If you keep calling fear wisdom, you may resist what I am positioning directly in your path. If you keep waiting for absolute certainty before obedience, you may miss the precise opening you once begged for. I am not saying this to create anxiety within you. I am saying it because love warns before consequences materialize. Love speaks before the door fully closes. Love reaches before regret takes root. Some structures around you will not remain as they are presently. Certain frameworks are already weakening because they were never designed to support your future. Certain connections are being tested because they cannot travel where I am taking you. You have sensed this already, though you struggled to articulate it. That strange sensation that something is simultaneously ending and beginning did not emerge from nothing. It exists because the foundation beneath old patterns has already started changing. I am not only removing what delayed you, I am exposing what can no longer stay concealed. If this message is resonating with your spirit, leave a comment below sharing what God is speaking to your heart right now. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Your breakthrough was never lost. It was concealed until this precise hour because you were not ready before now. There were parts of you still carrying fear you had not acknowledged. There were wounds still speaking louder than trust. There were thinking patterns that would have damaged what you asked me to release prematurely. So I waited, not because I forgot, but because timing protects what purpose intends to preserve. You counted months and wondered why nothing manifested. You measured pain and thought perhaps heaven had grown silent. But silence was not absence. Silence was preparation. I was allowing roots to deepen where no one could see because what stands publicly must first survive privately. What you named loss was often protection. What you called rejection was often redirection. What you labeled stillness was often construction. Stay with me until the end because the final words contain the answer you have been asking me in silence. I know the question you repeat inwardly, even when your lips stay closed. I know the single burden you carry beneath all other concerns. I know the hidden ache that returns when everything becomes quiet again. And I tell you now, you are closer than you think to understanding why this season had to unfold exactly as it has. Do not rush away from this moment, because what I am revealing now connects to what comes next. The answer you seek is not distant. The shift you prayed for is not missing. The movement has already begun, and soon what has been hidden will no longer remain veiled. Listen carefully because this moment did not happen accidentally. I did not allow your attention to land here without purpose. Before you even recognized this message, before your thoughts settled long enough to stay present, I had already designed this meeting. I know how ordinary this moment may seem on the surface. I know it may feel like one more message among countless voices that pass before you daily. But I tell you now with certainty that this is not ordinary, and this is not crossing your path by chance. I guided your focus here because there are seasons when I will not allow you to continue unaware of what is unfolding around your life. I know the exact hour your spirit becomes ready to receive certain truths. And I know when silence must end because what is at stake has become too important to leave hidden any longer. You may think you arrived here because of curiosity, because of routine, because of a simple choice made in passing. But far deeper than your own awareness, I was already directing this encounter. Heaven has been watching your exhaustion, listening to your unspoken questions, measuring the weight you have been carrying without words. This is why I speak now. You were found by this message because I refuse to let you continue believing that what surrounds you carries no meaning. There were earlier moments when you could have heard these words, and they would not have entered you the way they are entering now. There were earlier days when your mind was too occupied, your heart too guarded for you to understand what I was already preparing inside you. I do not speak important things before the soil is ready to hold them. I wait until what I say can reach beyond hearing and settle into the deeper places where transformation begins. That is why some truths arrive late according to human timing, but exactly on time according to mine. This message did not come when you first wanted answers, because at that time you were still listening through expectation instead of surrender. But now many things have shifted inside you. Pain has opened places that comfort never opened. Delay has made room where certainty once stood. I know you have been asking what has happened to your peace lately, why your mind refuses to settle even when nothing outwardly seems wrong, why nights that should bring rest instead became spaces where thoughts moved heavily through you. I know how often you laid down hoping sleep would come quickly, only to find your heart still awake long after your body grew tired. You wondered why thoughts returned to old concerns, why unfinished conversations replayed, why buried feelings suddenly rose again. But listen carefully. Not every restless night is born from fear alone. Not every sleepless hour means something is wrong. There are moments when what you call exhaustion is actually evidence that something deeper has begun shifting beneath the surface of your life. There are hidden movements within you that have made silence feel louder, because what was once buried can no longer remain untouched. Your body felt tired, yet your spirit would not fully release itself into rest. Something inside you remained alert, as though your soul knew that unseen pressure had entered this season. I allowed you to feel that, not to trouble you without reason, but because inner rest begins changing before outer circumstances reveal why. The heaviness that has visited you has not come because you are failing. Much of it has come because hidden areas are being touched by my hand. When I begin touching what has long remained buried, stillness often becomes difficult before clarity arrives. You have also noticed sudden emotional heaviness arriving without warning. Moments that should have felt ordinary suddenly became weighted. Simple days became harder to carry than expected. Times when tears almost came even when no immediate event had happened. You tried to explain it through tiredness, routine pressure, ordinary burdens of life. Yet inwardly you sensed something deeper you could not fully name. This heaviness has frightened you at times because you could not identify why it arrived so suddenly. But I tell you now, not every heaviness is punishment. Not every emotional pressure means you are losing strength. Sometimes heaviness comes because hidden things are loosening, and what has been held in silence begins moving before it fully leaves. When deep places shift, emotions rise before words can explain them. That does not mean you are broken. It means movement has begun. You have felt disconnected in ways you did not expect. Things that once brought comfort no longer settle you the same way. Familiar routines feel strangely empty. Even moments that should have brought joy felt distant, as though part of you was present, while another part remained searching for something it could not describe. You wondered whether something inside you had changed too much, whether your faith had weakened, because certain feelings no longer came easily. But what you interpreted as disconnection is often old internal structures losing their hold. When I prepare someone for a deeper season, what once felt sufficient begins to feel incomplete, not because I have left them, but because I no longer allow old comforts to satisfy where deeper growth is being called forward. There has also been strange internal pressure you could not explain, a sense that something is pressing inwardly, even when nothing obvious has changed. You tried to ignore it, hoping it would pass, but it returned in quiet moments when distractions no longer protected you from hearing your own deeper thoughts. That pressure was not meaningless. It has been part of the shaking already happening beneath what you built over time. Internal walls that can no longer remain untouched because they were built during seasons that cannot define your next season. I know that pressure has made you uncomfortable. You wanted relief before understanding, but discomfort often comes first when hidden foundations begin shifting. You have also carried unexplained frustration. Small things suddenly feel heavier. Delays you once tolerated now seem harder to bear. You ask why patience feels thinner, why your heart reacts strongly to moments that once passed without weight. This frustration is the sound of internal collapse where old endurance methods no longer work. You learn to survive by holding yourself together through habits of control, managing pain through quiet endurance. But those old ways are weakening because they were built for survival, not for what comes next. You have called this exhaustion. It feels exactly like exhaustion because carrying internal movement without clear explanation drains mind and heart together. But hear me clearly, What you called exhaustion was heaven moving underneath what you built. I am shaking hidden things. I am touching what remained undisturbed for too long. I am not destroying you. I am exposing what cannot continue unseen. There are beliefs you carried quietly that must now be examined. There are fears hidden beneath your decisions that must now be recognized. There are expectations built around old pain that can no longer remain untouched if you are to enter what I prepared beyond this season. And when hidden structures begin shaking, the first feeling is often fatigue, because what once stood quietly begins demanding attention. My child, there is much that has been happening around you that your eyes could not yet understand. And because you did not see movement, you assumed nothing was changing. Because you did not hear loud evidence, you believed heaven had become still. But I tell you now, silence has never meant inactivity in my hands. Long before you noticed the first small shift, long before your heart sensed that something unusual was happening beneath your ordinary days, I had already begun moving what stood in front of you like mountains you believed would remain forever. You looked at certain situations and quietly accepted them as fixed, because they had remained unchanged for so long. You told yourself that perhaps this burden would simply stay, that perhaps this obstacle had become permanent, that perhaps this unanswered area would never truly open. Yet while you were trying to make peace with what looked unmoving, I had already placed my hand against what you thought would never shift. Mountains often begin moving without noise. Their first movement is not always visible. Their first response is hidden beneath the surface where human sight cannot measure what has already begun loosening. You prayed for visible answers, but many of my deepest works begin where visibility does not yet exist. I know you wanted immediate signs, clear proof, something strong enough to calm your doubts quickly. But if I revealed every movement too early, you would often trust sight more than trust itself. So I began quietly beneath the silence you questioned. Things were already changing. Beneath the stillness you feared, pressure had already entered places that once refused to move. You were not untouched by me. I was already weakening resistance where you believed resistance had become permanent. I was already preparing outcomes before circumstances looked different. This is why I tell you now, never assume that silence means nothing is happening, because some of the greatest shifts begin before there is anything visible to celebrate. There are hidden doors that have already begun shifting, even though they have not yet fully opened before you. You have looked at some areas of your life and thought nothing is opening here. Nothing is changing here, nothing is responding here. But you only judged by what stood before your eyes. What you did not see was that behind what looked closed, movement had already begun. Hinges have already loosened where you thought the way was sealed. Conditions have already started changing where you assumed nothing could enter. Some answers are delayed not because they are absent, but because the full opening requires exact timing. A door forced too early can lead you into what is not yet ready to hold you. A door opened too late can seem impossible to trust, because hope has already grown weak. So I move with precision, not according to panic, not according to fear, but according to what protects what I have prepared. You thought perhaps certain prayers had remained untouched because there was no immediate answer. But hidden doors often begin moving long before sound reaches you. What you call delay has often been the slow turning of things you could not yet see. While you counted time, I was aligning pieces you did not know needed to move first. While you questioned why nothing changed, I was already touching hearts, shifting circumstances, weakening obstacles, and preparing the exact order required for what comes next. This is why some answers arrive suddenly after long silence. Because while you saw nothing, much had already been happening where your sight could not reach. Certain people were also removed quietly. At the time you felt more pain than understanding. You looked at departures and thought perhaps something precious had been taken. You looked at silence from certain people and believed maybe you had lost something necessary. But not every departure is loss in the way you first imagined. Some people leave because their assignment has ended even before you are emotionally ready to accept it. I know some absences still ache because they happened without explanation. Some endings still leave questions because no clear reason was given when things changed. But hear me carefully. Not every person removed was taken because you failed. Some were quietly moved because what I am building next cannot stand under the influence of what no longer belongs there. There are voices that comfort for a season but weaken discernment if they remain too long. There are relationships that once held purpose but cannot continue when purpose changes. You often call every departure loss because your heart remembers what once felt meaningful. But I see further than memory sees. I know which presence strengthens your future, and which presence quietly binds you to old patterns. This is why some removals happen without warning. Not because I wish to wound you, but because hesitation would have made release harder later. Before you go, I want you to know that everything you have been carrying, every question that has kept you awake, every burden that has made you feel alone, I have seen it all. And I am telling you now that the breakthrough you have been praying for is not somewhere far in the distance. It is closer than you realize. The shift is happening even as you read these words. The doors are already loosening. The mountains are already moving. And soon, very soon, you will look back at this moment and understand why everything had to unfold exactly as it did. Trust me in this hour. Trust me in the waiting. Trust me in the silence. Because I have never stopped working on your behalf.